Okay, so I just finished recording this week's episode of Controller Freaks, and I ranked all the Pokemon games, and then I went to stop the recording, and it said stop virtual camera, not stop recording. I hit the button right below the record button, and so it didn't save. So I'm going to briefly kind of walk you through my rankings and explain them. So starting off, elephant in the room. I haven't played like nearly half of the games on the list. I haven't played the original Johto games, or the original Hoenn games, or Coliseum, or Pokemon XD, or the original Gen 4 or Gen 5 games. Okay? Cat out of the bag. All right. We're going to work from the bottom of the tier list up. Absolute bottom tier, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Man, as my introduction to the Sinnoh region, holy flop. Like, I've seen videos of Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, so, like, I know how good they can be. Man, was I disappointed with the art style, with just how smoothed out and, like, kid-friendly everything became with these games. Just, man, I couldn't bring myself to play it for very long. It's just such a disappointment. Now, Sword and Shield are honestly pretty forgettable for me. And I understand if you want to call me a casual for any of my opinions here. I get it. I mean, I don't really have the resume to really kind of stand on when it comes to Pokemon, but man, Sword and Shield as like first mainline games on the Switch, and they're good. They were good, but I don't know. I feel like they were still kind of figuring out the teething issues with that would become ever more prevalent in Scarlet and Violet, which we'll get to in a little bit. Um, Regarding performance and frame rate and just how the game played and looked on the Switch. So I think there were just a lot of troubles with bringing Pokemon to the Switch, and that kind of harmed Sword and Shield. Now let's go Pikachu and Eevee. These are going to be the first Pokemon games I have my kids play when I have children later on in life, because they are extremely kid friendly, user friendly. But you know what? I think it kind of works. Unlike how they did it with Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, they kind of leaned into it with Let's Go in a way that actually made sense. It works. The game visually is stunning. The proportions for the people and the Pokemon are actually correct. And I mean, it's Kanto. It's Kanto on the Switch, reimagined in like a new, updated, cartoony art style. Like, they're good games. They're good. They play well. No real complaints other than like, okay, it's not as edgy, whatever. So, solid B tier. Then we get to the A tier, and you'll notice my tier list is very top heavy, other than the games I haven't played. And that's because I hold Pokemon games for the most part in pretty high regard. I'm a fan of the series. I think that usually they do a pretty good job of what they're doing. And with red, blue, and yellow, I have played red and yellow a little bit. I've played more yellow. Anyway, obviously, I didn't play them when they came out because I wasn't born yet, so I had to play them later on after the fact. And I think the kind of when you look at a game that's as old as that is, like you kind of have to frame it in terms of like when it came out. And for what the mid to late 90s, when red and blue and yellow came out, like man, that's just incredible. I would love to be a 10-year-old in the 90s playing red and blue and yellow for the first time, and just the experience that must have been incredible. So they land at a solid A tier because that is a dang good foundation to start off as a franchise. Then we get to the remakes. I mean, Fire Red, Leaf Green. I mean, they get a similarly high ranking because they took a really good foundation and they just gave it a graphical update with the updated Gen 3 graphics. So I don't see why not put them in A tier as well. Then we get to Pokemon Sun, which I remember was the first Pokemon game that I got on release. Like it was the first Pokemon game to come out after I got into the series. It came out when I was in like 6th grade. And I remember I was a kid at the time, so it's not like I had adult money to go and buy it. But I remember saving up money through doing chores and such. And the payoff was so incredible. I remember loving this game, playing it all the way through. Just what a joy to play through the Alola region. And we get Scarlet and Violet, the most recent, well, other than the next game we're going to talk about. Um, Honestly, Scarlet and Violet would maybe be S tier because as games, they're incredible. Gameplay wise, story wise, like just wow. The amount of post game as well, and the DLCs that exist for the game, like there's so much to do. But similarly to Sword and Shield, but ever more prevalent, there were a lot of performance issues and frame rate issues on the Switch 1. Now on the Switch 2, it seems to be majorly fixed, but I played it on the Switch 1 originally, and so that's how I'm kind of framing my memory of it. And yeah, the performance issues were pretty glaring and very hard to ignore, and so I had to bump it down a tier. Then we get to Legends ZA, and I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to our final game that we're going to talk about here. But I love the kind of breath of fresh air that the Pokemon franchise took when it came to the Legends games, and I just think that Legends ZA so far hasn't quite lived up to its predecessor in terms of like the hype and just the innovation yet, but I still haven't beaten it yet. I still haven't played it all the way through, and so I still have hope that it can finish pretty strong. Then we get to Heart Gold, Soul Silver. I didn't play the original Gen 2 games, but I played these. I played Heart Gold anyway, and man, I just love the ability to go all the way back and play through Kanto after you beat Johto. Like, that's just so cool to me. And so I put it in the S tier. It was the first thing to go in S tier, as you can see. Then we get to Pokemon X and Y. Now, Pokemon X was my first ever Pokemon game, and so of course I have the most nostalgia towards it as well. It introduced some of my favorite Pokemon, including my number one favorite, Greninja, and so this game will always have a special place in my heart. If I was ever going to make a biased ranking, this would be it. Then we get to Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which I think Hoenn is maybe the most just solid top to bottom generation of games and Pokemon in the world and just everything. It's just the most solid A plus 100%. They didn't do too much, they didn't do too little, and I know Mega Ruby Alpha Sapphire just took the base of it and added even more stuff onto it. And so I love that. It's a Gen 6 game technically, but you play through the Gen 3 story and all that, so this was my second Pokemon game that I ever got, and so I still have very fond, nostalgic memories of playing through that as well. We get to Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Now, as excited as I was for Pokemon Sun and Moon to come out, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon just kind of took it to another level with especially more post-game content is really where this game shines above their predecessors. And so that's why I gave it the S ranking. And our final game on the tier list is Pokemon Legends Arceus, 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 whatever you choose to pronounce it as. And man, what a just shift, what a change up in terms of like the way that you play Pokemon. This brought such a Legend of Zelda vibe to Pokemon, which I thought fit absolutely perfectly. Exploring like a historic Sinnoh region type of deal, and just everything from just the way you catch Pokemon to the way you battle to the way you like manage your party, everything is different. It's a total shift up on your expectations of what a Pokemon game is supposed to be, and I love it. And they executed it brilliantly, and so it's gonna get the S tier as well. But let me know in the comments below if you agree with my rankings or not. Be sure to tell me how you would change it if you would. And I appreciate you tuning into this episode of Controller Freaks. I'll see you in the next one.